Warren Awards Blood Trail in the Shadow of Turtles by T. Casey Brennan. Copyright 2019 by T. Casey Brennan. When Tony Macousqui told me he wanted me to write about my memories of the first Warren Awards for his ongoing film of the life of Vampirella artist Jose Gonzales, I wanted to tell about the blood trail that went with it, about a contest at my high school a decade earlier, and a raid on a rock music video called The Beer Can Garden that would come almost 4 decades later. Because they were connected, sort of, and that was because of the Kennedy assassination. There were 2 contests and a police raid, and the CIA was at all 3, and after all 3, people died. The first contest was at Peck High School in Michigan in 1961, in Sanilac County, later to be made famous as the home of the Nichols brothers, one of whom was executed for the Oklahoma City Federal Building bombing. But in 1961, that was all future tense. My late father, William Brennan, was on the St. Clair County, Michigan Board of Education and had just arranged for Peck High, a neighboring Sanilac, to take the high school students from our struggling K-8 district, Kankakee Township School District Number 4. That was what the right wing did in those bygone days. Both school boards were rife with John Birch Society members. The newly formed Birchers had become obsessed with local school boards, which themselves had become obsessed with consolidating and annexing, becoming bigger and bigger, and accompanying higher taxes. But my dad had another obsession himself, hypnosis, and it would tie in with it, all of it in the end. The Warren Awards were just around around 4th of July in 1971. T. Casey Brennan met Jim Warren for the first time. In fact, Jim Warren was the first person to address me as T. Casey. Before that, I had just been Casey, except in print, when I assumed the T of my first name. The raid was after I joined the Beer Can Garden on Cinco de Mayo in 2008 or 2009, I forget which. Here is how they all went. 1. The contest. It wasn't fixed, and there was an irony to the fact that it was won, hands down, by Dwayne Van Conant, which gave me an idea to take to my dad's hypnotist. The cousin of St. Clair County Sheriff's Deputy James Van Conant, who rushed to our aid with Deputy Orrin Burgett when our home at 4238 Bricker Road, Avoca, was hit in an armed ski mask attack on December 3rd, 1975, and my dad and I were left for dead. But by that time, it had been so long they didn't even mention the fact that William Brennan had been in the St. Clair County Board of Education in the front page write-ups on the crime that began with the December 4th, 1975 edition of the Port Huron, Michigan Times-Herald and continued for several days thereafter. But in 1961, he was. And his pick for the winner was a would-be football player named Jerry Something, who ended up getting auctioned off for 37 cents or something, and having his plans for a football scholarship thwarted because he had varicose veins. So Jerry Something didn't win, but Dwayne damned well did win, after beamingly being auctioned off for well over $5, almost $6. The contest, of course, was sexist and vicious and could never be repeated today. It involved volunteer males being auctioned off to the girls in the days when Michigan $6 would buy a meal in a hotel room. So it all gave the Peck High fund for whatever the $6 Dwayne took, plus whatever pennies the others got, and I got an idea. I told Daddy to tell our hypnotist I wanted girls to like me that way, but not just for a day, for forever. He said he worked for the CIA MK Ultra, and later, when I was in the 11th grade, he kidnapped me from the Yale, Michigan airport with my dad. He rolled me out of a box and made me shoot out the window. I think I missed, Kennedy, but they filled my pockets with Bircher-type pamphlets first. The social workers, since I was so poor so often warned me not to talk. Not about JFK, but about the ski mask attack on our home. But in 1961, the name Van Conant meant something far different to my dad and me. Dwayne inexplicably lived, though many of my classmates did not. And that was the first body trail. So many heart attacks, hunting accidents, etc., that even they began to notice. Number 2, the awards. When Phil Seuling's New York Comic Art Convention began, I was walking casually down a hallway of the New York City Statler Hilton when I was addressed as T. Casey by Mr. Warren while checking out his girlfriend with him. I was no longer just Casey anymore, or Terrence in certain more formal situations. Later, I stepped up to win the Gold Cup for Best Story of the Year for On the Wings of a Bird in the November 1970 Creepy. There was a party later, and Jim Warren said, "Anybody here would give their right arm to be in your shoes right now." There is a famous photo of Castro in New York, in front of the same hotel in 1959, I think, when New York still loved him. And before our hypnotist tried to kill him, but didn't. It should have ended with a fake peace mission to Havana after a fake attack by Cuba, followed by a very real assassination of Castro by hypnotized teenagers like myself, led by Lee Oswald. But in 1971, Phil Suling, African-American artist Billy Graham, and Archie Goodwin all received Gold Cups for their own hard work and all die of cancer in a few years.
Like every big voice.
When time has hardened me to the point that the prose of On the Wings of a Bird is almost unrecognizable as my own, I joke about warning them to stay away from the glowing thing in the podium. And that was how the Warren Awards went. Later, Warren will turn to a group of Spanish artists to do the bulk of the works, before they also must face a body trail among their own, inexplicable suicides and mysterious deaths. But before the 1970s ended, I had joined with Michigan's Donahoe brothers, who published Power Comics and created direct sales distribution for the comic book industry. They introduced Dave Sims' first aardvarks, Evil Dead's Tom Sullivan, and almost the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which were based on the Donahoes, hence Donatello, and T. Casey Brennan. Ask Kevin Eastman if you can find him. Number 3, The Raid. There was a party on Cinco de Mayo in 2008 or 2009, I forget which, and it was just as suspicious as the raid itself. On February 1st, 2003, I had been hit by a car at the corner of Washington on Oakwood and Ypsilanti, Michigan. I was thrown into the streets by St. Joseph Hospital, barely able to walk or talk. Homeless, penniless, and injured, without any income, I soon found myself with an almost limitless entourage of co-eds, who by degrees led me to the beer can garden, sort of in a combination between a venue for bands and a street gang. The BCG had inexplicably accepted me and had not included the usual restrictions placed on me by other similar houses in Ann Arbor, i.e., that I refrained from mentioning anything about my family background or the auto accident which had initiated my homelessness. So on the day of the raid, which must have come just before the 1st of June in whatever year that was, the raid came. A friend of the house, president or gang leader or whatever he was, Scott Macousqi, had escaped from a federal prison and had positioned himself with me at the BCG. Scott knew, but he didn't tell, and when the raid came, I was sitting in a couch in the living room. U.S. Marshals and Ann Arbor police had sealed off that block off 7th Street, as well as the next street over, in case someone had tried to run out through the backyard. As the raiding party hit my friends on the porch, I sat motionless and expressionless on a couch. A U.S. Marshal put a machine gun on me and told me to put my hands up and walk towards the door. 2 more U.S. Marshals came up behind me with machine guns, and the 3 of them walked me slowly into the yard where the other gang members were positioned face down. I had the police in a Polish firing squad maneuver. In the precious days when I could still talk to Lee's widow, and I was saying Bogart style that they had 3 machine guns on me, she said a water pistol would have worked as well. It was a couple of seconds before I realized what she'd said and started laughing. Of course, she's just teasing me again, and even that now is over, and she hasn't spoken to me in years. So that was how everything went, but we all know everything Warren, Dave Sim, Tom Sullivan, and T. Casey Brennan together ever did isn't as popular as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So there it is, Tony. I told the whole truth for you, but it was all in the shadow of the Turtles. The end.